Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's the Monday show with me, Andrew Musgrove, but today not with Aaron Stokes, but with Sam Mulliner in person here at Chronicle Towers. He does exist, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sitting right next to him.
Yeah, a thriving news hub of activity. It's all happening today. I bustled my way through. There's anarchy out there. It must be a heavy news day.
Can you just confirm to those who repeatedly go on social media and say that we are not Newcastle city centre based? Can you tell them where we are?
Eldon Square above Millie's Cookies.
There we go.
You do need key fob access, though.
Yes, but we are city centre based, despite the rumours that we are not. Thank you, Sam, for coming all the way up here to do the Monday show in person. But it's not just about the Monday shows, that you're here for a very special reason.
Am I?
Well, you're here for the game.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm here for a number of things.
It's special every day. Every day you get to go to the game, right?
Match day today, yes. I've been up here working yesterday as well. If anyone was at Sunderland Greyhound Stadium yesterday, you're welcome. But yeah, it's exciting. Under the lights at St. James's, Christmas markets out in the square. What a time!
Yep, and the war flags display looks excellent.
Well, from what we've seen of it in the leases, we're hinting at what's happening in the Gallagher, which is where I'll be sat tonight. So looking forward to it. As always, it's always a special occasion.
Yeah, it certainly is. They do and half put the work in to war flags. Just a reminder that this episode is brought to you by NordVPN. You know what to do by now if you want to be safe when you're using public Wi-Fi as you're out and about. Hit the link in our podcast description box to get a very special discounted offer for extra months on your 2-year plan. Thank you to everyone who's done so. Thank you to Nord. It is a pleasure and a privilege to have you on board.
Absolutely, man.
With Sam in person, we're going to record an episode of Just Take 3 later, which will be out later in the week. But I thought it'd be an ideal opportunity just to get you on a live stream.
Yes.
To talk about tonight's game.
Quick cue about last week's episode of Just Take 3. Have we had any nasty comments about the unpopular opinions?
That's I thought we would do. I'm going to put a few social media posts out.
Don't encourage it, mate.
I'm going to ask them about their opinions, especially yours, where you said you liked Alan Pardew.
He's all right. He's just a bit of a
careful,
silly so-and-so.
Anyway,
he's a silly sausage.
Yes, the incident at Hull was probably a little bit silly, to say the least. But tonight against West Ham, I think first off we have to look at the results that went this weekend, because Newcastle United could have slid right down the table by the time they kick off tonight. As it is, they are 9th, so they've fallen one place. A win will take them up this. Oh no, well, it would have to be quite the win. No, we'll take them up to 6 actually, because they'll be on 21 points. So they will go above Spurs if they win this evening. And let's be honest, they should do right.
They should, but they should have won comfortably against West Ham last season and not have to. Just what a comeback that was last season, such a memorable game. Whereas the polar opposite, it was the early game on the Saturday afternoon, of course. But we have a good record at home to West Ham.
Well, Newcastle have lost just once in their last 10 Premier League games against West Ham.
Yes. So I don't want to tempt fate here.
Well, this is the bigger question then. I asked you, should they win? Because I've had this quite a lot over the weekend where we are now saying Newcastle United are favourites and they should beat West Ham if their aspirations to be a top
We shouldn't
6
lose a game at home.
No, we shouldn't. And the record at home in general is very good. Have you come to be comfortable with Newcastle United doing what people expect them to do, i.e. beat West Ham? Or are you still a little bit nervous? Because that's the key question, I think.
There are times now where I am comfortable, which is still a very, very odd feeling. Broadly speaking, though, mainly to my own kind of personal cynicism and pessimism, that I do sometimes feel like, I mean, when we were 3-1 up at PSG, I was still worried we were going to lose 4-3. So, and before then in the Carabao Cup semi-final, Southampton needed, 2-3 goals in a minute, and I was terrified. It was never going to happen. But yeah, it's a game that should be a comfortable enough game on paper. West Ham are still missing a few key players. The fact that Kudus is suspended still is a brilliant boon for us because he's such a dangerous player. Fulkrug, who tore us apart in the Champions League, I thought it was a fantastically shrewd signing by West Ham amongst a number of their transfers this summer, actually. I was backing them for big things this season, but they've been so disappointing. That they can be a dangerous side, so it's not one that it's 3 points in the bag. Look, we're up to 6. Look at us and move on. No, there's still a game to be won here. And
you can't underestimate West Ham because they still have very dangerous players, not least Bowen, who would be absolutely superb at Newcastle United. But I still think
that ship has sailed though now, hasn't it? He's what, 28?
He still would do a very good job if they signed him in the summer.
It doesn't fit the MO though of our transfer policy now, does it?
So you wouldn't take him in the summer?
No, I wouldn't. No.
Interesting. Let us know in the comments. Would you sign Jared Bowen?
I think there are better,
if possible,
better alternatives.
Go on then, quickly. Name us them.
Kubo.
Okay.
Bakayoko.
Right. You're going for
Umbermo.
Okay, first Premier League name there. Okay.
We'll
not mention Anthony Elanga.
The Bournemouth chaps. Semenya.
He's brilliant, isn't
he? He impressed me and my 7-year-old when they played us last season at St James's, when Matt Ritchie, bless him, scored a last gasp equaliser. He was fantastic that day, and we've kind of followed him ever since. And yeah, he's a talent for sure. But there are plenty of younger alternatives for Bowen, who I think will just finish his career at West Ham. To be honest, with his family.
Connection.
Yeah, he ain't leaving there.
Very, very interesting. Let us know in the comments your pick, who you would like to see come in at the right wing. Yeah, I think it's a sign of a big team, sign of a top club when you can handle that tag of favourites. And tonight, Newcastle United are favourites. They're at home. They've only lost once in 13 at home, and that was to Brighton, a game they should have won. They've only lost twice this calendar year, the other time to Manchester City at home. As we say, the record against West Ham is brilliant. They've gone into this game, although with an international break in between, in great form. Alexander Isak back amongst the goals, the midfield finally clicking. Everything is in their favour, and I admit, as Newcastle United fan of the best part of 30, 33, 34 years, I still do get scared a little bit. Banana peel to fall on, to slip on. But it's changing within me. And Eddie Howe is responsible for that. The players are responsible for that. I go into this game, as I said, not underestimating West Ham, not disrespecting them, but fully expecting Newcastle United to win tonight. And that's a sign of a good team. They have to be beating West Ham.
Yeah, and go even further than that, really. If you want to, qualify for Europe's biggest competitions again, you have to go to Palace and get something. You have to go to Forest, which we did, and got the win. We have to go to Brentford. We have to go to Ipswich and get 3 points. So it's a big test between now and Christmas. We've got the cup quarter-final in the mix as well next month. So yeah, it's a big key passage of games now. The international breaks are done and dusted for the year. Thank
the Lord. It is a big run-up to Christmas, and obviously Liverpool's one of the biggest tests. But you watch the game against Southampton, they're vulnerable at times. So there is hope that they can go up against these big sides where they do reasonably well anyway, and they can beat the likes of Liverpool. But I think the other thing we've got to overcome, and tonight would be another step towards overcoming this, is beating those sides that you're expected to beat, because Newcastle United, Everton, Bournemouth to a degree, and other teams, Fulham maybe you can throw in that, even though they're doing quite well this season. There seems to be a mentality thing there.
You say that.
Well, they've fallen off a little bit, haven't they? But
Wolverhampton Wanderers 4-1 at Craven Cottage.
Well, we're going to get onto that in a moment because I want to speak about a player. But there is. Do you think Newcastle United are overcoming that kind of mentality issue against teams below them who they should be beating, who they're expected to beat?
Time will tell, because from the start of the season, no, we've took a long time to get going this season, and we've got away with a few. 2 worldly strikes against Wolves. We got away with that one. Bournemouth, we got away with a point, which we didn't really deserve. Fulham was a horror show from start to finish. Yeah, that was an awful day.
Because I guess in many ways, if you go into tonight's game and then you end up losing it, you'd be really frustrated.
Oh, yeah.
And then you'll be asking questions with that. You turned up against Arsenal. You turned up against what was a high-flying Nottingham Forest, and they've now fallen off the track a little bit. So why can't you match that against teams you expected to beat? And that's a massive challenge.
That's the difference between a top 4-5 side and one that's going to finish 8th, 9th, whatever. It's a bit of a test. The international break, you could argue, didn't come at a good time for us. It allows us to get a couple more bodies back. There's potential for Trippier and Wilson to be at least on the bench tonight. We'll find out at 6:45 or so. But yeah, this is a game that should be a comfortable win. Whether or not it is or not remains to be seen.
We'll ask you about what, 9:45 tonight or whatever time?
Yeah. Feel free to ask me then. I'll tell you all you need to know.
8 o'clock kickoff, of course, tonight. I'm looking forward to it. Like I say, I am expecting Newcastle United to pick up all 3 points. Mr. Alexander Isak, your favourite man in black and white, is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's a toss-up between. I mean,
changes every week.
No, it doesn't change every week. It's Isak and Bruno, and obviously I have an affinity with Tonali as well because of my foresight. But
here we go again. Alexander Isak has scored in all 3 of his league appearances against West Ham, netting a brace in both fixtures last term. No Newcastle player scored multiple goals in 3 consecutive Premier League meetings with an opponent. So he's got a chance to make history tonight.
And not to mention Callum Wilson, if he does come off the bench, I know it's a big if because we all know the Callum Wilson situation. But if he does, he has a tremendous record against West Ham as well. Ridiculous his record is.
The view from the opposition that went out on Saturday night, Sunday morning, which, by the way, if you haven't seen, I do recommend watching. I mean, I always recommend you watch it or listen to it, but this one has got loads of positive feedback because the guest, Tom, who works for TalkSport and is a podcaster as well, it's basically just an hour of him absolutely laying into Lopetegui. So it's well worth the watch. People have thoroughly enjoyed it. But he did say, you could wheel Callum Wilson in a wheelchair onto the pitch and he'd still score a brace.
And yeah, it's amazing football, isn't it? Because you would say, going into the start of the season, you would say that's a fantastically shrewd appointment. You would say they'd done tremendous business with the likes of Kilman coming in and Fulkrug. But it just hasn't clicked for them whatsoever.
No.
It's bizarre, but that's football, I guess.
Yeah, certainly. So I'm with you on that. I thought Lopetegui was a fantastic appointment, but it just seems he's got everything wrong. So if you do want a bit of insight, and trust me, Tom does not hold back on this episode, go and find the view from the opposition. It's well worth an hour of your time. We've got Timmy watching on from Melbourne in Australia. Says, how are the lads?
No, am I?
Thanks, Timmy, for tuning in. Truel says, we haven't got a big war chest, so we should be looking to Europe and South America, in their opinion, when it comes to signing someone for the right wing.
Does anyone know about our transfer situation anymore? Because 1 minute we've got hundreds of millions to spend, and the next minute we're being told that PSRs are
well, it's just dancing to the tune, isn't it, of the PSR accounts, and no one other than those with access to the books will truly know. I think if there's someone to sign in January, there will be room to do that, but it will come.
Well, there needs to be.
It will come probably at the expense of either having to sell somebody or not buying in the summer. Of course, the way the accounts end, it kind of restarts. But yeah, I don't think it's as simple as saying here's 60 million for Mark Gee and then nothing else happens. I think they will have to raise funds somewhere. And the question is we've been discussing for weeks on kind of every episode we do on this podcast, is I just don't think they've got the players to sell to raise funds. Like,
not anymore.
Miggy, what are you realistically going to get from him? Kieran Trippier, what are you realistically going to get from him? Callum Wilson. I mean, at the very most, you're probably collectively looking at 30, 35, 40 million at a push.
For all 3?
Yeah.
Maybe.
And I think that's been a little bit optimistic.
Or arguably your most valuable commodity is Lewis Miley.
Don't do it.
No, I know. I couldn't. I don't want him to go. I didn't want Anderson to go, but it follows that trait of Anderson and Minter. Because this is my number one bugbear of PSR. It encourages teams to sell their youth academy products, and it just goes against everything we were kind of tuned in to do for the past 20 years or so, when you need so many homegrown players in your squad to get in Europe and the Premier League or whatnot. But this is my number one bugbear. It just encourages teams. I mean, we've taken advantage of it as well because we've got Lewis Hall. That would have never have happened pre-PSR and all that carry on.
It's highly frustrating, isn't it? Because basically what you're doing is what these rules do. They stop you from building, but they also, to a degree, stop you from keeping your best players and open the door for them to join the 3 or 4 clubs above you who you want to be competing with. And it's just a vicious circle. So it has to change. It won't change anytime soon, unfortunately, but that is just the way of the Premier League. And we've got Brian saying, no easy games in the Prem. Liverpool and Man United struggle against Sutton and Ipswich. Attitude needs to be spot on tonight. 100% agree with you there. John says, if we play like we did against Forest, we should have too much. Trippier and Wilson coming back is a big, big bonus. Omar is feeling very confident. We will win 5-0. He says, watch this space. So there you go. And he also says, I agree, Andrew, well said. But to be honest, Anderson and Minter haven't been great losses. That's actually what you said there, Sam. They haven't been great losses. I think Anderson's been very
Anderson's
well.
been superb for Nottingham Forest.
Flashes.
Minter started off well, but he had a bit of an injury here and there, hasn't he? So he's out of the team now. But
the point is, we don't want to lose.
No, we don't want to lose him. And Anderson's been doing fantastically for Forest.
Do you know that Newcastle United have used just 19 players this season in the Premier League, fewer than any other side? What does that tell you about Newcastle United? Does it say we haven't really got the options, or does it say more about the team spirit and what Eddie Howe is trying to build?
Bit of both. Still missing a few key players from injury. Botman, of course, being the biggest one. It says that Howe likes a settled side. And I think his stats, those stats will probably be similar from 2 years ago as opposed to last year because of the injury crisis and how many games we played. He likes a settled team, doesn't he? And once you've got the shirt, you've earned it. You keep it until you've mucked up and you're out the side again. So that's why Tonali will probably be on the bench again today, which is still a big conundrum. Will we see Joe Linton start off the right-hand side?
But isn't that the key point? It's a conundrum. It's not a negative. It's not a, what are you doing, Eddie Howe? Because actually the players that are keeping him out of the squad, out of the starting 11, are earning their place. Joe Willock and Sean Longstaff have been absolutely brilliant. I think Sean Longstaff has probably been the key to why Newcastle have performed so well in recent weeks. And it's not like we're sitting here saying, what are you doing, Eddie? We're actually saying, well, yeah, it's probably the right decision because of the form of the players.
So, yes, I agree with everything you've just said, but there is still in the pits of my stomach a feeling that we've got a £60 million Italian international midfielder who arguably could well be our best midfielder. Definitely between him and Bruno, of course, isn't it? Sat on the bench twiddling his thumbs when, he would be a starting fixture in pretty much every top team around Europe. That hasn't been worked out. I don't think the midfield issues have been resolved yet.
But can Bruno and Tonali play in the same side?
Yes. Okay. Tonali has to be in the middle of the three.
And Bruno on the
left or the right. I would have said right previously, but he's come on and filled in on the left before and looked perfectly capable.
Forget the form, forget the opposition. Who was the midfield three that you'd be picking above else? So you got Tonali in the middle, Bruno
on the right, Willock on the left.
You see, this is the issue.
Because otherwise it gets too defensive, and I think that's why we've done so much better lately, because Willock brings so much energy and dynamism into that midfield, which no one else really does. We don't have a really out-and-out attacking midfielder. Bruno and Tonali can sit in front of the back, both quite defensively minded. Bruno can get forward given the opportunity, like he did when he first signed on the right-hand side, where we had Shelvey sat in the six, pinging balls around. But Willock is the only one with real dynamism and that can carry the ball forward, which the others can't really. It's not their game.
I really do think Sean Longstaff plays a much bigger part in that midfield. People give him credit for it. I think you take him out and you will see the levels drop off. I think he just allows the others to kind of flourish a bit more.
I don't disagree.
I do wonder whether Bruno and Tonali can play in the same midfield together.
That's a worry. But yeah, look, I've been a staunch Sean Longstaff defender for years, an admirer, a defender of his. I don't think the criticism he's got over the years has been warranted at all. Every kind of good, successful team has that kind of quiet, non-flashy name that just goes under the radar and does the dirty work. Like Man United had Darren Fletcher for how many years?
Michael Carrick, I guess.
Again, there's plenty like Arsenal, like with Gilberto Silva and players like that. Just do the business, and that allows the players around him to create headlines. But yeah, Sean Longstaff has got a big part to play in the squad. He should have his contract extended. He should finish his career at Newcastle United. But there is a concern, as I say, in the pit of my stomach, that we need to find out a system that or a way to accommodate our world-class players.
By the sounds of that, then, you would advocate ripping up the system as it currently stands if they could find a system which gets the world-class players into a side?
I mean, it's not the ideal time to do it now. So, I can see why Howe's done what he's done, and it's the right thing to have done at this stage in kind of going back to basics. and reverting to type from the pretty much the team that got us to fourth. But I've said before, and I've said on Newcastle Fans TV before as well, that these top managers don't keep the same system and formation for 3, 4, 5 years. They freshen it up. How many times has Guardiola changed his system at City, and Klopp did it at Liverpool as well? And so whether we can stick with 4-3-3 forever, I'm not convinced. But there is, whether it's the time to do that or not now, I'm not so sure.
Omar says Longstaff does the dirty work, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We are on a good run. He's also asked a question of us both, Sam, of who we would rather sell, Bruno or Tonali. He says, I think Tonali could replace Bruno. It's not really a question I think anybody wants to answer, but we're talking about Newcastle lacking assets that they could really sell to raise a lot of funds. It's not ideal, but if someone comes in for a bid for Bruno, gives you 70, 80, 90 million pounds.
Well, this is the reality. If that conundrum isn't solved, one of them will leave sooner rather than later as well. Arguably this summer. Tonali hasn't come here to sit on the bench and come on with 20 minutes left to play. He's a world-class midfielder. He could sit alongside Rodri in that City midfield, no problem, as could Bruno. So yeah, this is why if we are gonna, you spoil. Say for example, you play 4-2-3-1. Bruno and Tonali in front of your back four. Oh, it's ridiculous.
Is the balance there? That's what a lot of people are asking.
No, because then you will need a 10, which we don't have. You'd need a very good right winger, which we don't have. So yeah, that's the kind of conundrum, really, isn't it? And it's an interesting one going forward for Paul Mitchell and Eddie Howe. But it could be it's a good question, really, because it's likely that situation is going to rear its head sooner rather than later.
Got Truel saying, I disagree that Longstaff should start just because he's a Geordie. Doesn't make it so he is the reason we win. We've definitely not said he should start because he's a Geordie. I'm saying he should start because the results don't lie. When he's in the side, Newcastle United don't tend to do badly, and he does appear, at least in the last few weeks, to be the balance for the rest of that midfield to work and flourish. So it's not about him being a Geordie. I don't really care where he's from. I care about his impact, his positive impact on the team and to help them win. We've got Omar saying, Miggy, Target, Dubs won't raise any funds and no one will buy them, which I do think is a proper, real dilemma for Paul Mitchell and the transfer team, because who
it's going to be another Jamal Lewis. It's going to be another Jamal Lewis. Yeah, I knew this was coming with Matt Target. We should never have signed him on a permanent. He did great on loan, but to make it permanent was I don't think it was a good move at all. Dubravka will go on a free, won't he? We've got our new club record goalkeeper signing, doing wonders for Greece, getting on the score sheet for England as well. It's you're not going to raise any money. The opportune moment to sell your man Miggy was
the summer after that great season,
correct? Which you would have been apoplectic with rage had that have happened. But
I'm a very logical person. If you present me a business case that I would have listened to, and maybe I could have been persuaded. Yeah, look, Paul Mitchell has mentioned a few times about Newcastle needing to be better traders.
Oh yeah, we're horrendous sellers, horrendous, awful. Unless it's one of these players that create huge market interest, like in the Ashley era, getting 35 million for Carroll, and we sold Sissoko for quite a good fee. Cabaye, I think he went a touch on the cheap side. Since then, who have we sold? Wijnaldum, maybe a bit too cheap. Townsend was a release clause. And who have we sold since then?
Even Chris Wood's looking a bit cheap, isn't he?
Possibly, but yeah.
Omar says Matt Target is garbage. Constantly looks. I'm not going to.
I wouldn't go that far.
I think
he's fine. This is the problem. He's fine.
I think he's an average left back. I can see why Newcastle signed him actually, because he impressed so much, and that left back position's always been an issue. but it hasn't worked out. He's been injured quite a lot, but I still think he could do a decent job in a mid-table Premier League side. But it's just whether Newcastle United. I think this is the issue. I think, and I'm sure they're aware of this, but I think Newcastle United are just going to have to get into their minds that they are not going to get market value for a lot of these players they want to sell. So just take the hit, get the wages off the books, take what you can for a lot of these players, because if you're asking 20 million from Miguel Almiron, it's not happening. If you're asking 15 for Matt Target, it's not happening.
Oh, no way.
Get what you can. Any money is good money. Clear the books with the wages and then start afresh. To kind of phrase says, Target is fine as cover. Should we lose Hall for a season? Doesn't need to make the bench when everybody is fit. Omar says we should go for Walker Peters, which, to be fair, I wasn't against, but actually the form of Lewis Hall has changed my mind on that. You've got Lloyd Kelly there as well, and Dan Burns not going to go anywhere. You're shaking your head at Lloyd Kelly?
No, I'm not shaking my head at Lloyd Kelly. I was shaking my head at Walker Peters.
Okay, well, let's talk about Lloyd Kelly, because a big night for him this evening against West Ham. He's going to get his opportunity because Dan Burn is suspended. I've been impressed with Lloyd Kelly and what we've seen him. I think he's actually very good in the air, which was one of the worries people put to me when I was excited that he'd signed this. And he's not very good in the air. You lose that dominance if you take Dan Burn out. Okay, maybe. But I have been impressed.
Because Dan Burn is 8'12". That of course it's going to be.
There can't be that much difference in the height, to be honest. But anyway, when I find that out, talk to me about his opportunity tonight, Lloyd Kelly, and how important it is that he takes it.
I have no quibbles with him coming in tonight whatsoever. It's just such a, I don't want to say non-issue, but I whenever he's come in, he's done quite well. It's particularly at centre-back. He played the cup game against Chelsea there, didn't he? And did really well. When it's a like for like in and out like that for a suspension or whatever, I just don't see.
But it's a big opportunity for him, because without Dan Burn getting suspended, he's probably not going to get that chance to impress.
But then Burn will come straight back in, presumably on Saturday.
I agree, but what he needs to do, Lloyd Kelly, is he needs to have such a good performance, such a dominating performance, that he gives Eddie Howe something to think about. We all know that when the suspension's on for Dan Burn, he comes back into the side, but we want to make that decision harder for Eddie Howe. And he doesn't just want to let this game pass him by. He
has to, because otherwise, when Botman comes back next month or in January or whatever, all of a sudden, he's third choice centre back, just on that left hand side of the central pair, or is he second choice left back? It's not an ideal position for him. He's essentially the new Paul Dummett. It is a big night in that sense, but I think he's a steady enough player. Quite a shrewd signing for a free transfer or whatever. But he's no world beater. But you don't have to be to do the job he does. He'll come in tonight and touch wood, hopefully do fine like he's done when called upon so far this season. I thought he did really well at left back in the first half against Spurs earlier this season. Got the assist for Barnes. I've no quibbles whatsoever with Lloyd Kelly coming in tonight. I think he'll do a great job. But I'm
looking forward to seeing him. I am.
Yeah.
I think, like I say, it's a big opportunity for him. I want him to make the most of it. I'm glad he's going to get a bit of game time. It's a shame it's come the way it has. Dan Burn getting suspended by a yellow card. That should never have been a yellow card.
Oh, no.
They are messed up. But anyway.
And Anthony Taylor getting plaudits for how he dealt with the game yesterday now as well, when he should have been refereeing in the Championship. But
But yeah, like I said, I've got no issue with Lloyd Kelly. I think he'll do a great job, and I'm looking.
I'm more concerned with Cher, to be honest. There's just some signs, very, very.
Have you come over to my way of thinking?
What?
Because I've been concerned by Fabian Cher for many, many months.
I wouldn't go that far. I would go for some weeks rather than many, many months. But yeah, there are
creeping in these mistakes.
Yes, there is a lot, and we've got away with it so far.
He's sort of looking like the Fabian Cher pre-Eddie Howe, because I think Eddie Howe came in and showed them up, and we saw, for instance, you remember the first game against the first game of the takeover after the takeover against
Spurs,
and he lost the ball.
Yes, he did.
Tried to chase someone down and just totally wiped them out, and that was kind of what his game was pre-Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe came in and he turned him into this absolute rock star of a centre back. Someone who was just focused, and the Fabian Cher was focused as an unbelievable centre back. And you'd asked me 6 months ago, or last summer, I would have said, get him signed up.
Yeah.
Post this contract he's on now, keep him in the side. He's a brilliant asset. He'll still have a chance of first team. But over the last 3 or 4 months, just little things creeping into his game, giving the ball away, getting caught by runners. I don't think tonight's so much of an issue. I mean, the real threat's Jared Bowen, but he's probably going to be on the right. Mikel Antonio's not really got much about him at the age of 35. If it's Danny Ings, even less so. They've got dangerous players, and I've probably jinxed it now, but I'm not so much worried about tonight. It's games when you come against players with real speed or players who I suppose have got a bit of muscle. His issue is that he's been backing off players a lot.
Yeah, Mateta at the weekend might be a bit of a concern after we got completely Mateted last season at Selhurst, didn't we? Share is just one to maybe keep a little bit of an eye on, because there are signs of concern for me now. And with that, you would have said, well, the club wouldn't, but you would have said that right winger was a priority in the summer, despite us going all out for Mark Gahey. With the emergence of Joe Linton possibly being able to do a job on that right-hand side now, what becomes the priority in January? Does it become a right-sided centre-back to be the kind of long-term successor to Share and be the long-term partner of Sven Botman? Or is it still very much a case of we need a right winger in?
I still think you need a right winger in.
I agree.
I think what we will see is a short-term uptake on Joe Linton's form, and it will die off at some point in a couple of games. And then he'll get criticised, and it's just a vicious circle. Even if he gets through the new year in good form on the flanks, then fair enough. But I think in the back of your mind, you're always thinking, okay, so you're going to be able to replicate that the next game. Get someone in who can just light up that flank. You've mentioned a host of players. I mean, Brian Mbeumo, get him in. He's absolutely brilliant. You need someone in who can do it all. Although someone did make a good point in the comments about why are we talking about right wingers who are good on the counter? Do we not want to see Newcastle United progress to a more possession-based side?
Yes, yes. You need someone with that bit of quality to kind of unlock a defence that have come to kind of low block and try and maybe get away with the point, particularly at home. And then maybe on the counter-attack when we're away from home. But yeah, we need a game changer on that right-hand side, because we don't have it at the moment. And we haven't had it since Almiron's purple patch, which was, relatively short-lived, but it was still an impressive purple patch. But yeah, since then, we offer nothing from that right-hand side. Murphy, as much as we love him, he can do a job every now and again. Can he do it consistently in the Premier League? No.
Well, he's wasted his opportunity, hasn't he? Because that was his spot to lose, and although he probably lost it, the injury hasn't helped, but he just did nothing. After a brilliant pre-season, it's like, you had the opportunity. It was yours. It was there. It was in your hand, and he just didn't take it, frustratingly. And we'll see if he's probably on the bench tonight, I would imagine.
Yeah. That's his place.
Will you answer? You asked me the question there about the priority. What is the priority in January? You seem like you're kind of
right wing January, centre back summer.
Go back in for Mark Gay at some point
potentially. There are plenty of alternatives out there. If Southampton go down, I'd take a look at Harwood Bellis.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think Newcastle United need to be doing more of that, actually, and looking, a bit like Chelsea did with a couple of players, looking at these players who are maybe at Man City, who can't get in the first team. Just because they can't get into Pep's first team doesn't mean
look at Palmer.
Doesn't mean they're rubbish players. It just means that path is closed off. But a lot of people...
Is this where you're going to bring up Liam Delap?
Well, I wasn't going to, but I will do. He's not looking too bad, is he, ladies and gents? Yes, go back and find out what I said about. No, I'm joking. But look, the point being is that you talk about signing players from the Championship, or you talk about signing players from relegated sides, or you talk about signing players from the top teams' academies who can't get in, or on the fringes of the first team. And there's a lot of players, fans, who turn their noses up and say, that's not what we should be aiming for. It's like, well, why not? Just because they can't get into the team, or just because it's been relegated, doesn't mean that rubbish players and won't improve Newcastle United. Matthias Cunha, for example. If Wolves go down, ladies and gentlemen, here's £40 million. Take my money, Wolves, and give us Cunha. It doesn't make them bad players. And I never understand that mindset.
Yeah, he's adaptable enough to go on the wing as well and play down the middle. So yeah, that would be another really good shout. McAtee as well, young McAtee from City, warming the bench, isn't he? And
there's a couple of players at Sheffield United who are looking quite decent. What's the youngster called? 17, 18-year-old captain as well. Looks decent. But this is the point, like
Chris Rigg as well.
Yeah, Chris
down
Rigg.
The road.
You don't need to be signing, players who are at the top of the game. And I know that obviously will accelerate when Newcastle get to. But also sometimes you just got to pick a player up who's maybe fallen on bad times or has got relegated, and it'll take them click of the fingers and they'll prove their worth.
Exactly. A bad patch of form doesn't make them a bad player. Like Gay, not been great for Palace, but he's still. If you're picking an England side, he'd be in mine.
Or where did Newcastle sign Nick Pope from?
Burnley,
who went down and got relegated, right? So, there are players about there who don't cost a load of money and who aren't at the top of the game, but can certainly improve this Newcastle United side. So, yeah, you are right about the chap from Southampton who is impressing, and I think there's
and there are loads from around Europe as well. It's criminal that Antonio Silva went to Leipzig so cheap after Simikan went to Saudi. That was criminal how no one in the Premier League took a look. The same as Guirassy going to Dortmund up front. There's so many good deals out there in and across Europe that don't require much scouting and don't require too much finances, unlike, Dan Ashworth paying over a release clause for Xerxes. There's plenty of shrewd business to be done out there. It's just because we are in an era where we do have to box clever. With spending restrictions, but yeah, there's loads of good talent out there. But yeah, I can't believe Antonio Silva was allowed to go so cheap from Benfica.
No, well, there's lots of deals like that. You think, what on earth is going on? And the chap I was thinking about from Sheffield United is Arblaster. He's got a big hype.
Arblaster,
but
he could be Arblaster.
Very good. Lookman is tearing up the Serie A. I mean, I think if you look for kind of a backup striker,
that's a strange one, isn't it? Because he's had stints in the Premier League before,
but again, it might just be the right time. Do you know what I mean? Like, it might just be the right time that he's just.
And Serie A is a funny league because players can be tremendously successful in Serie A and then come over.
That West Ham chap, they spent loads of money on centre back after a season.
Yeah,
Shamaka,
the centre forward. Yeah, great player around Europe, but not all players can adapt to the Premier League. Yeah, but there is tremendous value to be had out there. I mean, Diamande from Sporting Lisbon, Inacio, his partner, is on the left hand side, but then again, so's Mark Gahey. There's loads out there, loads.
And hopefully, it leads us to, if not an interesting January, then an interesting summer. How's tonight going to go? Then you're going to throw in a score prediction?
I'll
go 4-0 Newcastle.
That's very bold.
4-0 to Newcastle.
Because we haven't been the free flowing scoring. Relentlessly.
No time like the present to change that.
No, but my point was there was just glimpses of that just starting to come at Forest, wasn't there? 3-1, something like that.
Well, I think the West Ham fan I had on the podcast said 3-1. He originally said 4-0, then he marked it down to 3-1. Okay. I've just had a text from our entertainment editor here at the Chronicle who said, I'm just listening to your latest podcast. Is that West Ham guy okay? No, ladies and gents, he's not. He hates Lopetegui and he is dreading tonight. And that's exactly why you should go over and watch that episode when we are done here. Just quickly, let's just cover some main points in the Premier League away from Newcastle United for now. Steve Cooper being sacked at Leicester.
Surprising.
Bizarre, really?
Yes, but if you're in and around Leicester, it's arguably not a surprise because Leicester fans haven't been happy with him for a while. Leicester fans weren't happy with Maresca either. I don't know what they're trying to achieve, whether or not they've got ideas above their station now. Yes, you've had tremendous success, 6, 7, 8 years ago. But if you've been relegated, your first season back is just, consolation in the Premier League.
Consolidation.
Excuse me. Very rare. You have to correct me. Normally it's the other way around. And you're the university journalist. I didn't go to university.
Oh, he has a little tiny violin. Anyway,
What?
continue.
Hey, I'm debt free.
That's very true.
But yeah, I don't know whether that, and it's so unlike their owners as well, who normally give their managers a tremendous amount of time, usually very, very fair.
But there is something, isn't there, that is rumoured to rub people up the wrong way. I'm sure I read somewhere about Forest that.
So,
but then most managers
do your due diligence.
Who I don't know, he's only been in charge 12 games, hasn't he? Who comes in to replace him?
Well, you know who's caretaker manager now?
Ben Dawson.
Ben Dawson, formerly of this parish.
It's quite a rise up to the top job, isn't it? I mean,
fair play to him. He had a great reputation here through, and he was the kind of mainstay throughout a torrent of brown stuff down the years here. But for me,
it's Graham Potter.
I'm going Ruud van Nistelrooy.
Oh, it's a shout! I've seen that linked. Yeah, seen him linked.
He wanted the Coventry gig, didn't he? And I think he.
Did they give it to Lampard in the end?
Yeah.
How did they get on?
I
thought they got beat.
I think they drew at the weekend.
Can't stand Lampard.
I do pass their stadium every time I go to work. But yeah, Mark Robbins has been. He's been harshly treated,
yes, to say the least.
I mean, is he a contender?
He did a good job, didn't he? Got them within a kick of the Premier League, didn't he?
Yeah. They drew to Sheffield
it's
untidy.
Not a bad result, that, to be fair.
No.
And of course, Oliver Arblaster would have been playing there.
Yes, he would.
But yeah, interest. I mean, Graham Potter's another contender.
David Moyes.
Yeah, I'm not sure he would go down very well.
Eric Ten Hag.
Nah.
Steve Bruce. No.
Well, how was he getting on to Blackpool?
We don't hear. He started tremendously well, didn't he? But I don't know whether it's died down a bit.
I'll have a little Google and see. But yeah, and then the other big news of the weekend, of course, was the first game of the new Manchester United manager. Didn't go quite to plan. 1-1 against Ipswich. Did you see it?
I did.
Looked a little bit.
A good point for a mid-table team away from home.
Yeah, looked a little bit all over the shop. And I know he's only had 2 weeks and he hasn't been able to work with everyone. But yeah, I would cover this ever so briefly, but it did wind me up. The want and desire from certain media outlets to turn this into something that it was not was just absolutely sickening.
I'm just looking up at the sky. Yeah, well done, Ed Sheeran.
I have to agree, actually. If you haven't seen it, Ed Sheeran comes in mid-interview where Ruben
Amorim
is having...
Who scored against us for Braga.
Now, that is a bit of trivia there. He's having his interview with Kelly Kate and
Roy Keane, who had his own foibles at Ipswich.
I saw that, yeah. And someone else, I can't remember who it was. But in comes
Redknapp.
Ed Sheeran. I thought it was a little bit rude.
Yes, it was. But
funny enough,
sometimes you've got to take things into your own hands. And yes, it was a tremendous love-in for a mid-table team. But which is essentially, I'm sorry, it's what they are. However, because I've got a few Man United fans at work, because I work in Milton Keynes, so of course there's Man United fans around. They've still had 2 trophies in 2 seasons, and what would you give to have that?
Oh yeah,
they have been awful for so many years now, and they're still somehow winning silverware, and you would just give your right arm for a taste of that. If we'd have won that Carabao Cup, I'd still be at Wembley now.
I don't doubt that for a moment.
No, I would. I'd probably tops off as well. But yeah, just
that's an image
just to have. No, very true. But yeah, it's one of them. He'll need time and he'll get his system. Ashworth's got a big job as well to get those transfers right into the system he wants to play, because if he's going to play 3 at the back, he hasn't really got the players to do it at the moment.
We'll make a quick prediction. Is it going to be AVB or is it going to be Jose Mourinho?
AVB? What, Villas-Boas?
Yeah. He kind of flopped, didn't he? Whereas Mourinho obviously won everything possible.
Well, Amorim couldn't get the West Ham job. They didn't. He interviewed for it, but they didn't fancy him.
which I'm sure is one side of the tale. But go on, make a prediction. We'll come back to it in a year's time. He's been sacked for being awful.
Is it just a bit too big too soon for him?
Do you know what? He comes across as a very likeable guy, and I would really like it to work, but it's the Manchester United aspect of it.
Why would you like it to work?
No, but if it was him going to another club, if he'd gone to West Ham, or even he'd gone to City, for example.
Well, that was on the cards potentially with Hugo Viana going to City, yeah, which is
well, if Pep continues on this way, they might need a new
Well, that's the big story from the weekend. I was working Saturday night whilst City were playing Spurs, and I could not believe. I mean, all right, they've got a couple of injuries. Yes, they're missing their Ballon d'Or winner, who's obviously a huge loss in midfield, with Kovacic as well, who was also missing. But take a look at their starting 11. It's still world class. And they looked so vulnerable on the counter attack, which they haven't looked since under Pellegrini. It was shocking how bad they were. Like
they looked fearful. They looked scared. I think that was the main thing I took away from that game. You know, you can be vulnerable on the counter, but it's worse when you actually, as soon as the opposition get the ball, you look like the rabbit in the headlights, and that's what they look like. It's not like they just couldn't handle Spurs. They look scared of them, and that is another level entirely. Yeah. You don't expect off Man City.
No, I know Spurs do actually have a half decent record against Man City. I know, but yeah, it was really surprising just how bad they looked in transitions, and when Spurs were counter attacking. My word, City were just all over the place. It was bizarre.
So there we go. Quickly, prediction: AVB. Mourinho. Don't sit on the fence.
I don't think it'll be quite AVB, but
not quite Jose Mourinho. Will he last a year?
Yes, they'll give him time.
There we go.
They gave Ten Hag time.
They did,
and he was the second coming as well.
So tonight, 3-1. That is the prediction of Sam there. Newcastle United versus West Ham. Hope you guys have enjoyed the show. It's a pleasure to see Sam in person. Thank you very much for tuning in. Do give the video a thumbs up, share it amongst Newcastle United supporting friends and family. Head over to chroniclelive.co.uk for all the latest Newcastle news. And remember to tune in later this week for the latest episode of Just Take 3. And for myself and Sam, we will see you when that episode is out.